The cargo freighter, Starbound Drift, was dying. Its engines screamed as the ship fell through the sky of the barren moon called HFY. Fire wrapped around the hull like angry hands, and the whole ship shook so hard that the walls cracked and split apart. Deep inside the ship, in a small room meant for emergencies, a young Valorian hatchling held onto a metal bar with all her strength. Her name was Kira, and she was only 6 cycles old. Her scales were soft and bright blue, not yet hardened like an adult's scales would be. Her large golden eyes were shut tight as she screamed for her clutch mother, but her clutch mother was on the bridge of the ship, trying to save them all. The ship hit the ground. The sound was like thunder mixed with breaking glass. Kira felt herself thrown against the wall, then everything went black. When she woke up, the world was silent. Gray smoke drifted through the broken ship. Kira pushed herself up slowly, her small body hurting everywhere. She looked around the emergency room. The walls were bent and torn. Sparks fell from broken wires above her head. But she was alive. She called out for her clutch mother. Her voice was weak and shaking. No one answered. Kira crawled through the broken doorway into the main hall of the ship. What she saw there made her stop breathing. The bodies of the crew lay on the floor, still and quiet. Their lifelights, the small glowing spots on their chests that showed a Valorian was alive, were all dark. Gone. She found her clutch mother near the bridge. The older Valorian lay on her side, her scales cracked, her eyes closed forever. Kira touched her clutch mother's face with her small hand. The skin was already cold. Kira did not understand death, not really. She was too young. But she understood that her clutch mother would not wake up. She understood that she was alone. And so she began to weep. Valorians did not cry tears like humans did. Instead, when a Valorian felt great sadness, their chest plates would vibrate and make a sound. It was a low, deep sound, like a song made of pain. The sound would go on and on without stopping. Young Valorians could not control this sound. When they felt sadness, the weeping came whether they wanted it or not. Kira's weeping echoed through the broken ship. It floated out through the cracks in the hull and spread across the empty surface of HFY. The moon was a dead place, just gray rocks and dust under a dark sky. No plants grew here, no animals lived here. There was only silence and stone. Now there was also the sound of a hatchling crying for her lost family. The first day passed slowly. Kira stayed near her clutch mother's body, unable to leave. She did not eat. She did not drink. She just lay there, making that terrible sound of grief. On the second day, her body forced her to move. Thirst and hunger were stronger than sadness. She remembered that her clutch mother had taught her about emergency supplies. Every ship had boxes of food and water stored for bad times. Kira searched the broken ship until she found the emergency boxes. Her small hands struggled to open them. The locks were made for adult claws, not for soft hatchling fingers. But after a long time of trying, she got one box open. Inside were silver packets of food and bottles of water. The food tasted like nothing, like eating dust, but she made herself swallow it. Her clutch mother had always told her to be strong. She would try to be strong. But at night, when the moon's surface grew even darker under a sky full of strange stars, Kira's strength left her. She curled up inside a cargo container that still had its walls intact. She wrapped her tail around herself and let the weeping come again. The third day was the hardest. Kira had stopped looking at the bodies of the crew. She had stopped going near the bridge. Instead, she sat at the edge of the crash site and looked up at the sky, waiting. Her clutch mother had told her about distress beacons. Every ship sent out a signal when it crashed. Other ships would hear the signal and come to help. Rescue would come. She just had to wait. But the sky stayed empty. No ships appeared. No lights moved among the stars. The rescue that Kira waited for did not come. She was too young to know that Keth 4 was far from the normal space lanes. She was too young to know that the distress beacon had been damaged in the crash and was sending only a weak, broken signal. She was too young to know that most ships that received such weak signals simply ignored them, thinking they were just echoes or mistakes. All Kira knew was that she was alone on a dead moon, surrounded by the bodies of everyone she had ever loved. All she knew was that the sky remained empty no matter how long she watched it. All she knew was the cold, the silence, and the grief that would not stop flowing from her chest. By the end of the third day, Kira had stopped eating again. She lay in her cargo container, her scales growing dull from dehydration, her golden eyes staring at nothing. The weeping sound had grown softer now, not because her sadness was less, but because her body was too weak to make it louder. She thought about her clutch mother. She thought about the warm ship that had been her home. She thought about the stories her clutch mother used to tell her before sleep. Stories about brave Valorians who explored the stars and found wonderful things. Now there were no more stories. Now there was only the dust and the dark and the sound of a hatchling who had lost everything, crying alone on a moon where no one could hear her. Kira closed her eyes and waited for the end to come. She did not know that far above her, beyond the dark sky, a small repair shuttle had just changed its course. She did not know that someone had heard her signal after all. She did not know that help was coming. Una Park had been alone in space for 17 days when she heard the signal. She was a mechanic, 34 years old, with short black hair and hands covered in old scars from years of working with machines. Her small repair shuttle was called the Little Sun, and it was not a beautiful ship. It was old and dented and made strange noises when it flew. But Una loved it because it was hers, and because it had never let her down. She had been working in the asteroid belt near Keth 4, looking for old ship parts to salvage and sell. It was lonely work, but Una did not mind being alone. She had grown up on a space station where too many people lived in too small a space. Silence was a gift to her now. The signal came through her communication system as a weak, broken sound. Most of it was just static, but underneath the static, Una heard something else. A pattern, a rhythm. It was a distress beacon, damaged but still working. She checked the source of the signal. It came from Keth 4, a moon that nobody visited because there was nothing there. No water, no air that people could breathe, no reason to land. Una almost ignored the signal. Going to Keth 4 would cost fuel that she could not easily replace. There was probably nothing there except an old crashed ship with no survivors. Most spacers would have kept flying, but then she heard something else in the static, a sound that was not part of the beacon. It was low and sad, like music made of tears. Una did not know what the sound was, but it made her chest feel tight. It made her think of her younger brother, who had died in a station accident when she was 20. It made her think of how she had cried alone in her room for days after, making sounds that hurt to remember. She turned her ship toward Keth 4. The moon was as ugly as she expected. Gray dust covered everything. The sky was the color of old metal. And there, in a valley between dead hills, she saw the crashed ship. It had torn a long scar in the ground when it fell. Pieces of it were scattered everywhere like broken bones. Una landed the Little Sun a safe distance away and put on her environment suit. The suit was bulky and hard to move in, but it let her breathe and kept her warm in the cold air of the moon. She walked toward the crash site slowly, looking for survivors. She did not expect to find any. Crashes like this usually killed everyone. But then she heard the sound again, that low, sad music. It was coming from somewhere in the wreckage. Una followed the sound until she found a cargo container that was still mostly intact. She looked inside and saw something that made her heart stop. A child, a small alien child with blue scales and golden eyes, curled up in the corner like a wounded animal. The child was the source of the sound. The sad music was coming from her chest, flowing out of her like blood from a wound. Yuna had seen Valorians before, at space stations and trading posts. She knew they were a peaceful species, known for being sensitive and emotional. She also knew that their children were very fragile and could not survive alone. The hatchling saw Yuna and tried to run, but her legs were too weak. She fell and crawled backward until she hit the wall of the container. Her golden eyes were wide with fear. Yuna understood. Humans had a bad reputation among many alien species. Stories said that humans were violent and dangerous, that they killed without reason, that they could not be trusted. These stories were not fair, but Yuna knew they existed. She did not move toward the hatchling. Instead, she sat down on the ground, cross-legged, keeping a big distance between them. She took off her helmet so the child could see her face. Then she pulled a protein bar from her pocket, opened it, and began to eat. She did not speak. She did not reach out. She just sat there, eating slowly, looking at the ground instead of at the child. An hour passed, then 2 hours, then 3. The hatchling watched Yuna the whole time. The fear in her eyes slowly changed to confusion. Why was this human not attacking? Why was she just sitting there? After 4 hours, Yuna took out a bottle of water. She drank some of it, then placed it on the ground halfway between herself and the child. Then she moved back to where she had been sitting before. Another hour passed. The hatchling's thirst was stronger than her fear. She crept forward slowly, ready to run at any moment. She grabbed the water bottle and moved back to her corner. She drank the water so fast that she coughed. Yuna smiled but did not move. By the 6th hour, the hatchling had crept close enough that Yuna could have touched her. But Yuna still did not move. She waited. Finally, the child spoke. Her voice was small and rough from crying. "Why are you here?" Yuna thought about the question. She could give many answers. Because she heard the signal. Because she was curious. Because she needed salvage. But she told the truth instead. "Because you needed help," she said, "and I was close enough to come." The hatchling stared at her for a long time. Then she said, "My name is Kira." Yuna nodded. "My name is Yuna. Are you hungry, Kira?" Kira nodded slowly. The sad sound from her chest was quieter now, though it had not stopped completely. Yuna pulled another protein bar from her pocket and held it out. This time Kira took it from her hand, and for the first time in 4 days, the hatchling stopped weeping. Yuna's shuttle was too small and too old to carry a passenger safely across space. The life support system could barely keep one person alive. Adding a second person, especially a young Valorian who needed special air to breathe, was impossible. So Yuna stayed on Keth 4. Her plan was simple. The crashed Valorian ship still had a communication array, the machine that sent signals across space. If she could repair it, she could send a strong message to nearby stations. A proper rescue ship would come. Kira would be safe. The work was hard. The communication array was badly damaged. Wires were burned. Metal was bent. Important parts were missing or broken beyond repair. Yuna had to use pieces from her own shuttle to fix the Valorian machine. Every day she took something from the little sun and gave it to the array. Kira watched her work. At first, the hatchling kept her distance, sitting on a rock 20 steps away. But as the days passed, she moved closer. By the 5th day, she was sitting right next to Yuna, watching her hands move among the wires and circuits. "What is that?" Kira asked, pointing at a tool. "This is called a soldering iron," Yuna said. "It makes metal hot so I can join pieces together." "And that?" "Wire cutters. They cut wires." "And that?" Yuna smiled. "That is my lunch. Do you want some?" They ate together, sitting in the shadow of the broken ship. Kira's scales were looking better now. They had some of their shine back. The sad sound from her chest came less often, though it never disappeared completely. "Yuna," Kira said one day, "why do you know how to fix things?" Yuna thought about the question. "My father was a mechanic on a space station. He taught me when I was young, maybe a little older than you. He said that fixing things was a good skill because the universe was always breaking." "Is he still alive? Your father?" "No. He died a long time ago. My mother, too, and my brother." Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you miss them?" Yuna looked up at the dark sky. "Every day. But missing them does not mean I stop living. It means I carry them with me wherever I go. They are part of me now, like my bones or my heart." Kira thought about this. She thought about her clutch mother, whose body Yuna had helped her bury on the second day. She had not been able to look at the grave since then. "Will I carry my clutch mother with me?" she asked. "Yes," Yuna said. "Always." The days continued to pass. Yuna worked on the communication array from morning until night. Progress was slow. The damage was worse than she had first thought, and every day she had less food, less water, less power in her shuttle's batteries. On the 12th day, Yuna looked at her supplies and felt her stomach grow cold. She had 3 days of food left. Her shuttle's life support was failing. The air recycler was making bad sounds, and she did not have the parts to fix it. She had a choice to make. She could stay and keep working on the communication array. But if she did, she would die when her supplies ran out. And then Kira would be alone again, with no one to help her. Or she could leave. She could fly to the nearest station, get more supplies, and come back. It would take 3 days, maybe 4. Kira would have to wait alone. But at least Yuna would return with food, water, and maybe even the parts she needed to finally fix the array. It was not really a choice at all. That night, Yuna sat next to Kira in the cargo container that had become the hatchling's home. She did not know how to say what she needed to say. "Kira," she began, "I have to leave tomorrow." The effect was instant. Kira's golden eyes went wide. The sad sound started in her chest again, low and terrible. "No," Kira said. "No, you cannot leave. Please." "I have to," Yuna said. "I am running out of food and air. If I stay, I will die, and then you will be alone with no one to help you." "Take me with you." "I cannot. My shuttle does not have the right air for you to breathe. You would get sick before we reached the station." Tears that were not tears ran down Kira's face, a clear fluid that Valorians produced when they were extremely upset. Her whole body was shaking. Yuna reached out and held the hatchling in her arms. Kira was stiff at first, then she collapsed against Yuna's chest, her small body shaking with grief. "Listen to me," Yuna said softly. "I am going to come back. Do you understand? I am not leaving forever. I am leaving so I can return and save you properly." "Everyone leaves," Kira whispered. "Everyone dies. I am not going to die, and I am not going to leave you forever. I promise." Kira pulled back and looked at Yuna's face. "Promise?" "I promise. 3 days. I will be back in 3 days." Yuna reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a music player, old and scratched, but still working. "This was my brother's," she said. "He loved music. When I feel scared or sad, I listen to it and feel better. I want you to have it while I am gone." Kira took the device with trembling hands. "I am also leaving you my emergency blanket and my last 2 food bars," Yuna continued. "You will be safe. You just have to wait." The next morning, Yuna walked to her shuttle. Kira stood at the edge of the crash site, watching. The music player was clutched against her chest. Yuna climbed into the little sun and started the engines. She looked out the window at the small blue figure standing alone in the gray dust. 3 days, she said to herself. "I will be back in 3 days." The shuttle lifted off and flew up into the dark sky. Kira watched until it became a small point of light among the stars. Then it was gone, and Kira was alone again. The first day without Yuna was not as bad as Kira had feared. She kept the music player close to her at all times, pressing it against her chest plates where she could feel its small vibrations when the songs played. The music was strange to her. Human music was different from Valorian music. It had more sounds, more layers, more changes. Some songs were fast and loud, others were slow and soft like a whisper. Kira did not understand the words. They were in a human language she had never learned. But she understood the feelings behind them. Some songs felt happy, some felt sad, some felt like hope. She ate one of the food bars slowly, making herself take small bites so it would last longer. She drank water from the supply she and Yuna had collected from the crashed ship. She wrapped herself in Yuna's emergency blanket, which smelled like the human, a strange smell that was not bad, just different. When night came, Kira lay in her cargo container and looked up at the stars through a crack in the roof. She tried to guess which direction Yuna had gone. She tried to imagine the little sun flying through space, getting closer and closer to the station where Yuna would find food and supplies. "She is coming back," Kira whispered to herself. She promised. The second day was harder. A dust storm came from the north. Kira had never seen a dust storm before. On the ship where she had lived with her clutch mother, the weather was always controlled, always safe. But here on HFY, there were no controls. Nature did what it wanted. The wind came first, a howling sound that reminded Kira of her own weeping. Then the dust came, thick and brown, filling the air until she could not see more than a few steps in front of her. The dust got into her eyes and her mouth. It covered everything in a layer of gray-brown dirt. Kira hid in her cargo container, pulling Yuna's blanket over her head. The storm raged outside, shaking the container walls, screaming through the cracks. Kira was sure the container would break apart and she would be swept away. But the container held, and after many hours, the storm began to fade. When Kira finally looked outside, she felt her heart sink. The crash site looked different now. The dust had covered many things. Some pieces of the ship had been buried completely. The area where Yuna had been working on the communication array was damaged even more, the partially repaired machine now half buried in dust. And the sky was still brown and hazy. If Yuna's shuttle came back now, would she even be able to find the crash site? Would she be able to land safely in this dusty air? Kira tried to tell herself that everything would be fine. Yuna was smart. Yuna knew how to fly in bad conditions. Yuna would find a way. But doubt was growing in her chest like a cold stone. The third day came, and Kira waited. She sat on the highest piece of wreckage she could find, looking up at the sky. The dust had mostly settled now. The air was clearer. She could see the stars again. She watched and waited. Every time she saw a light move in the sky, her hearts beat faster. But every time the light turned out to be a satellite or a meteor, or just a trick of her tired eyes. The hours passed. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon became evening. Evening became night. Yuna did not come. Kira told herself that maybe she had counted the days wrong. Maybe it had only been 2 days, not 3. Maybe Yuna had been delayed. Maybe the station was farther away than Yuna had thought. But deep inside, a dark voice whispered other things. Maybe Yuna was not coming back. Maybe she had lied. Maybe she had decided that saving a Valorian hatchling was too much trouble. Maybe she was already far away, forgetting about the small blue girl she had left on a dead moon. The 4th day was the worst. Kira stopped eating. She was not hungry anymore. Her body felt heavy and tired, but not from lack of food. It felt heavy from something else, from sadness, from the weight of hope that was slowly dying. She stopped playing the music. The songs that had brought her comfort now just reminded her of Yuna, and thinking of Yuna hurt too much. She stopped watching the sky. What was the point? The sky was empty. It had always been empty. It would always be empty. Kira crawled back into her cargo container and curled up in the corner. She pulled Yuna's blanket around herself, but it did not feel warm anymore. Nothing felt warm anymore. The weeping sound came back, louder than it had been in days. It flowed out of Kira's chest plates in waves of pure grief. She did not try to stop it. She did not have the strength to try. She thought about her clutch mother. She thought about the crew of the Starward Drift. She thought about all the people who had loved her and cared for her and then left her, one way or another. And now Yuna. Yuna had left too. Everyone left. Everyone always left. Kira closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. She was so tired, so very tired. Maybe if she slept long enough, she would not have to feel the sadness anymore. Maybe if she slept long enough, she would not have to feel anything at all. The 5th day began, but Kira did not notice. She lay still in her container, barely breathing, barely living. Her scales had gone dull and gray. Her golden eyes were closed. The weeping sound had faded to almost nothing, not because she felt better, but because her body was too weak to make the sound anymore. She was giving up. And then, through the fog of her exhaustion, she heard something. At first, she thought it was a dream, a rumbling sound like distant thunder, but different. It came from above, from the sky, getting louder and louder. Kira opened her eyes. She could not move, could not lift her head, but she could hear. The sound grew until it was right above her. Then there was a great rush of air and dust, and the sound began to fade as something landed nearby. Footsteps, running, getting closer, and then a voice she knew calling her name. "Kira! Kira, where are you?" It was Yuna. She had come back. Yuna found Kira in the cargo container, curled up like a dead leaf. The hatchling was not moving. Her scales had lost all their color, turning from bright blue to dull gray. Her breathing was so shallow that Yuna had to put her hand on Kira's chest to feel it. For one terrible moment, Yuna thought she was too late. But Kira's hearts were still beating, weak, slow, but beating. Yuna gathered the small body in her arms and carried her out of the container. Outside, the little sun sat in a cloud of settling dust, its engines clicking as they cooled. The shuttle looked terrible. One engine was smoking. The hull was covered in scratches and burns. A large dent on the side showed where something had hit it hard. But Yuna did not care about the shuttle. She only cared about the small life in her arms. She brought Kira inside the shuttle and laid her on the floor. Then she worked fast, her hands moving with the skill of someone who had fixed broken things all her life. She connected a water tube to Kira's mouth and let clean water drip slowly between her lips. She wrapped heating pads around the hatchling's body to warm her cold scales. She spoke softly the whole time, even though she was not sure Kira could hear her. "I am here. I came back. You are going to be okay. I am here." Hours passed. The sun of Keth IV, a small and distant thing, rose and crossed the sky. Yuna did not sleep. She sat beside Kira, watching, waiting, hoping. And then, as the sky began to darken again, Kira's eyes opened. They were cloudy at first, unfocused, but then they found Yuna's face, and something changed in them. Light came back into those golden depths. "Yuna?" Kira's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." Yuna smiled, and there were tears on her cheeks, human tears that ran down her face and fell onto the floor. "I am here. I came back. You came back. I promised, did I not?" Kira stared at Yuna for a long moment. Then she began to cry, not the weeping sound from her chest, but real tears, the clear fluid that Valorians produced in moments of overwhelming emotion. The tears ran down her gray scales, and where they touched, the scales seemed to brighten, returning slowly to their natural blue. Yuna held her close and let her cry. She did not say anything else. Sometimes words were not enough. Sometimes all you could do was be there. When Kira's tears finally stopped, she looked around the shuttle. Her eyes went wide when she saw all the boxes and containers stacked in the cargo area. "What is all that?" she asked. Yuna smiled. "Supplies, food, water, medicine, parts for the communication array, and something else." She helped Kira sit up and pointed to the shuttle's door. Through the window, Kira could see another ship landing nearby. It was much bigger than the little sun, with smooth silver sides and bright lights. "That is a Valorian rescue ship," Yuna said. "I contacted them when I reached the station. They came as fast as they could." The door of the silver ship opened, and a tall Valorian walked out. His scales were dark green, and he moved with the calm confidence of someone who had seen many emergencies. His name was Duri, and he was a rescue coordinator. Duri entered the little sun and looked at Kira. His expression was serious but kind. "Young one," he said in the Valorian language, "you are safe now. We have come to take you home." Kira should have felt happy. She should have felt relieved. A rescue ship was here. She would be saved. She would go back to Valorian space, to her people, to safety. But instead of running to Duri, she moved closer to Yuna. "I want to stay with her," Kira said. Duri looked surprised. He glanced at Yuna, then back at Kira. "The human?" he asked. "But she is not your kind. She cannot care for you properly." "She saved me," Kira said. "She stayed with me when I was alone. She left to get help, and she came back. She promised, and she came back." Duri was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Yuna with new eyes, as if seeing her for the first time. "Is this true?" he asked in the common language. "You stayed here to help her?" Yuna shrugged. "She needed help. I was here." "The storm that passed through this area," Duri continued, "we detected it from space. Flying through that dust cloud would have been extremely dangerous. The shuttle handles well in bad conditions." Duri pointed to the damage on the little sun. "Your ship looks like it flew through an asteroid field." Yuna looked at the dents and burns on her shuttle. Her expression did not change. "There was some debris on the way back," she said simply. "I did not have time to go around it." Duri stared at her. In his many years as a rescue coordinator, he had met many different species. He had learned that most beings, when faced with danger, would protect themselves first. It was natural. It was logical. But this human had risked her life, damaged her ship, and flown through danger just to return to a child who was not even her own species. "You are either very brave or very foolish," Duri said. "Maybe both," Yuna replied. "Does it matter? She is alive." Duri looked at Kira, who was still holding on to Yuna's arm. The hatchling's scales were getting brighter by the minute. Her golden eyes were full of trust and love as she looked at the human woman. "No," Duri said slowly. "I suppose it does not matter." In the years that followed, Kira grew into a strong and wise Valorian. She studied hard and worked harder. She learned many languages and traveled to many worlds. And when she was old enough, she became an ambassador, a voice for her people in the great halls of the Galactic Cooperative. She was one of the first Valorians to speak in favor of humans joining the cooperative. Many of her people were against it. They remembered the old stories about human violence, human danger, human unpredictability. But Kira remembered something different. She remembered a dead moon and a crashed ship. She remembered a human woman who sat in the dust for 6 hours, just waiting for a scared hatchling to trust her. She remembered a promise made and a promise kept, even when keeping it meant flying through storms and debris and darkness. When other Valorians asked her why she trusted humans, she would tell this story, and she would always end it the same way. "Humans do not make promises lightly," she would say. And when a human gives you their word, they mean it, even if they have to fly through fire to keep it. That is what makes them special. That is why we should trust them. Because when a human says she will return with tools and hope, she will move the stars themselves to keep that promise. And far across the galaxy, in a small repair shop on an old space station, an aging mechanic with gray in her hair would sometimes look up at the stars and smile. She still had the music player that had once belonged to her brother, and next to it, carefully preserved, was a small blue scale that a young Valorian had given her as a gift many years ago. A reminder that sometimes the best thing you can do in a broken universe is simply keep your promises.